Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Just in the Nick of Crime. It is day 6 of the Diddy trial, and it has been explosive. Cassie has taken the stand, and a lot of things have gone on, and so we're just going to get right into it. Um, Real quick, I'm going to say this before we go. I'm not going to get into all the things. If you are watching on TikTok or Instagram first, please hit that follow button. TikTok friends, please tap that screen, get that over 10,000 if you haven't already. Yeah, please get it there. And I'm going to tell you this. If you come in late, this is for Instagram and for TikTok people. This is being recorded on YouTube. All right. This is being recorded on YouTube. You can go in and see it anytime if you're not able to stay for the whole thing. The other thing I will encourage you guys to do, everyone, follow me on Substack. There's a link in the show notes here on YouTube. It's in my bio to get to Substack. I think it's justinthenickofcrime.substack.com. And the reason I'm telling you to do that is because if you can't watch these things, you can't see them, you want to stay up to date, I will be doing recaps at least once a day. So for this one, probably today, twice a day, on Substack, so you guys can get those breakdowns for when you don't read them. I'm just going to encourage y'all to do that in YouTube because that's where you're going to get everything in case you miss it. Now, that being said, let me go back to this. I'm not ready to show that picture. Two things I want to address before we get into everything that started going on today. One, because I keep getting the question a lot, I just want to make sure I address it. Federal trials are never televised. That is why you cannot watch it. That is why you cannot listen to it. That is why there are no still pictures. There is no video, photography, or audio recording in a federal trial. People have also asked, well, then how are you getting all of this info, Justin, if media is not allowed? Media is allowed. Reporters are allowed. They all have to take everything by hand. And then they get it out to their people and they get it to the news. And I'm covering I have 6 different ones up, but I'll tell you who I have if you guys want to follow along. I have AP, Daily Mail, Independent, CNN, NBC, Yahoo News, and ABC are all the ones that I am constantly checking and updating to get this information from. It is, trust me, a full-time job doing that just for this. So yeah. Anyways, let's just jump right into it. All right. So before witness and by the way, this is going to be very notes heavy. So if I'm looking like I'm reading, it's because I am. Otherwise, I would not be able to remember to tell you guys everything. So before witness testimony resumed today, a major point of contention was argued with the judge talking about should the media be allowed to view the explicit videos, the freak-off videos that is going to be shown to the jury as evidence. All right. The judge said that he is inclined to grant the media's request for access to the videos and images that are expected to be submitted as evidence. However, he hasn't made a final decision yet. Basically, what he's trying to do is he's emphasizing the need to balance privacy concerns of the witnesses and the defendant with the public's First Amendment right to monitor court proceedings. Okay. He said now that we are in trial, there's a heightened First Amendment concern. And despite his leaning, he is giving both parties another day to submit their written responses before making a final ruling. Basically, here's what prosecution and defense are saying. Both prosecutors and Diddy's defense team are opposing public access to this material. The prosecution and defense is in agreement on that. They want the videos and images sealed so that only the jury and trial participants will review them. Because remember, this is of a highly sensitive nature, right? That's why they're trying to keep it kind of there. The assistant U.S. attorney, Emily Johnson, argued that there is solid legal precedent to keep these materials out of public record, especially given the privacy implications. Defense attorney Mark Agnafilo went further, saying that calling the footage was nothing more than adult pornography, describing it as people who are nude, having relations, or about to have relations. He also questioned the purpose of press access, saying if it's a privacy issue and it's adult content, what would the press do with it if they had it? And the media's argument on this whole thing is basically that it's important to have it in a case like this. They wouldn't publish anything salacious or they asking copies, but they want to be able to monitor the judicial process and ensure transparency. So basically the compromise that everybody has come up with, that the judge, I guess, is trying to figure out what he's going to do, is that maybe a select group of 3 or 4 reporters could view the videos on behalf of all media outlets, and that's when they would be able to put it out there as far as what was, acceptable. All right. Now, basically, the judge is going to issue that final decision when all parties have written their response. And so it's unresolved. We should have that answer tomorrow or the next day. All right. Now, let's talk about who we saw show up today in the courtroom. All right, let's talk about who we saw show up today. Boop. The first person is this woman right here. And again, if you are on TikTok, you can't see this. You can jump over to YouTube if you want to. This is Dana Tran. She is Diddy's girlfriend, returned to for day 2 of the trial. She is best known as the mother of Diddy's youngest child, the one that was born in December of 22, just 2 years old. She is a cybersecurity director by profession. You can see what she's wearing. I don't need to do that. The next person that came is Sarah Chapman. All right. Sarah Chapman came up today, longtime friend and mother of one of Diddy's children. She appeared. They share a daughter that was born in 2006. Their child was conceived while Diddy's late partner, Kim Porter, was pregnant with twins, making Chapman's relationship with Combs a long discussed chapter of his personal life. And they have maintained a close friendship. Next, and this one's actually kind of significant, and this is when we're going to really start delving into things. Okay. This right here is Alex Fine. Alex is Cassie's husband. All right. He arrived in court ahead of his wife's anticipated testimony. They met while he was working as a personal trainer for Diddy, which is a detail that kind of adds a few more layers to this already ridiculous legal drama that's going on. I don't say ridiculous, but already heavy, maybe. They are married, expecting a third child in just a few weeks. She is 8 months pregnant. Okay. Now, let's talk about Daniel Cross. Because they finished up with him. So if you guys don't remember, the person we were talking about yesterday was Daniel Phillip in the cross-examination. Daniel was a male escort who was paid by Cassie while Diddy watched for them to have encounters, multiple encounters. Okay, so today, when the trial resumed with continued testimony from Daniel Phillip, basically what happened was defense was able to do their cross, and Xavier Donaldson was the one who was up. He led cross-examination, aiming to challenge Phillip's credibility and paint the encounters as consensual, while prosecutors sought to reinforce Phillip's account that Combs directed this activity. All right. So basically, Donaldson focused on inconsistencies between Phillip's testimony and his prior statements, which he made to federal prosecutors. He claimed that Phillips told investigators in March of 2023 that Combs did not direct his encounters with Cassie, which contradicts the statements that he made yesterday on Monday. That's what he had previously told defense. He then testified today that he does not recall telling prosecutors otherwise. Donaldson then suggested Phillips was jealous of Combs, developed a crush on Cassie, and wanted to isolate her romantically. Phillips denied this, though he did admit, I was attracted to her. If she ever gave me a chance to date her, I absolutely would have. He then recounted meeting Diddy back in 2012 at that Manhattan hotel, which, again, we talked a little bit about yesterday. And at the time, Combs had hid his identity by wearing a ball cap to cover his face with a bandana. If you guys remember from yesterday, the only reason that he recognized who it was basically from the voice. At the time, Diddy, pretending to not be Diddy, told Phillip that he was in the importing and exporting business. It wasn't until later encounter at a different hotel that Combs revealed who he actually was, and he opened the door in a suit and a pea coat. Then they got into questions on coercion and control. The defense repeatedly asked Phillip whether Cassie was drunk or high during their encounters. Phillip testified that Cassie appeared sober in all but one instance. He confirmed that he never saw her drink or use substances during those meetings. When asked if she was in complete control of everything she was doing, Phillip responded with, "I cannot say that." The defense emphasized that Phillip was paid by Cassie herself, seemingly to suggest her agency in arranging the encounters. Basically, their point there is like, this wasn't forced because you called him up, you paid for it yourself, you arranged these encounters. That is what defense is trying to basically paint a picture of here. Then he got into the alleged assault incident, which I don't know why we're saying alleged. We've all saw the tape, but alleged assault incident, so we don't get sued. Donaldson questioned Phillip about a specific incident where he claims to have witnessed Combs' assault. Oh, sorry, this is a different one. That's why I said that. Sorry, my notes are all over the place here. Where he claims to have seen an assault at Ventura at her apartment. He confirmed that Cassie sent him her address, that they had relations before the assault. He maintained that Cassie did not appear under the influence during this time. The defense presented a prior law enforcement interview where Phillip allegedly told investigator that Combs had said, quote, "Yo, man, I'm going to need to deal with this. You need to get the F out." On the stand, even though that was in a law enforcement interview, Phillip said he did not recall making that statement. Then there was a redirect by prosecution. After cross-examined Maureen Comey, who is the lead prosecutor on this case, James Comey's daughter, conducted a redirect questioning to reinforce the key claim. She asked him to confirm who directed the S acts with Cassie, rubbing baby oil, engaging in relations, and performing oral relations. And each time, Philip answered Sean Combs. Philip then clarified that all of his encounters with Ventura were paid jobs explicitly directed by Combs. He even recounted an instance where he wasn't paid because he couldn't maintain what guys need to maintain in order to continue on. All right. A certain level of rigidness is what we can say. All right. Then defense got involved, and Estavo shifted the focus directly onto Cassie, bringing up an alleged incident in which Ventura assaulted a security guard. She argued that prosecutors are portraying Ventura as a victim of violence within her relationship with Combs, but claimed the defense would show that her actions were tied to Combs' suspicions of infidelity, not coercion. Estavo also said that prosecutors are trying to blame Combs for Ventura's substance use, asserting the defense will argue that she used substances by her own choice. Then Emily Ann Johnson pushed back. That was the prosecutor calling the alleged assault a prior bad act, irrelevant to Ventura's credibility. Then the judge overruled the prosecution's objections, allowing the line of questioning to proceed. The defense's underlying goal here was this. Throughout the defense, aimed to recast Philip's encounters with Ventura as consensual. That was one of the main things they went out to do, that these were transactional arrangements between adults outside of the narrative of coercion or trafficking. Also, by attacking Philip's credibility and shifting attention to Ventura's alleged past behavior and substance use, the defense is working to weaken the prosecution's broader claim of a criminal enterprise for exploitation. In just some additional context here, things I noted down. Philip is the prosecution's second witness. The courtroom is also awaiting the judge's ruling on whether or not the videos connected to his testimony will be shown publicly or only to the jury. And separately, the defense has raised concerns about the visual impact of Ventura, who is 8 months pregnant, being on the witness stands while jurors are present. So what the point of that is Cassie is 8 months pregnant. She's due pretty much at any time. And being pregnant could elicit sympathy from the jury, and the jury's trying to rule that. I believe, though, that the judge said, screw that, you're still going to go on. So that is where it went to break. All right. This is where they had a 10-minute break. From there, they basically went on and said that when they got back from this 10-minute break, Cassie was going to take the stand. I'm going to go ahead and change the photo from Cassie's husband here to Cassie, and then I'm going to get into the kind of the pre stuff. So, that's sorry. This guy, that was, I meant to change that. That's the sketch of Alex Phillip talking about, the thing. Anyways, sorry. Cassie, that's Cassie now. So let's talk about this. Again, if you guys are just coming in, if you are coming in on TikTok or Instagram, this is being recorded on YouTube. You can go watch it from the start to finish, and there will also be Substack recap of all of this. This is the midday recap. We do have more. Make sure to hit that follow button, by the way. Just a real quick side note. If you're watching on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, make sure to hit the follow button because we will be covering this from start to finish. Now, so Cassie, there were some pre-testimony developments. All right, so let's talk about some of this stuff, okay? As Cassie Ventura prepared to take the stand, courtroom arguments focused on limiting what the jury will see and who will be allowed present during her testimony. The defense's efforts centered on minimizing potential sympathy and challenging Ventura's credibility, while the prosecution underscored her central role in this case. They're basically Cassie's their star witness for the prosecution. So I mentioned about limiting the view of the pregnancy. So let's talk about that a little bit more in depth. So again, Cassie is 8 months pregnant. She is the prosecution's star witness. Defense attorney Mark Agnifilo argued that her visible pregnancy could unfairly sway the jury by generating sympathy. Agnifilo requested that Ventura be seated on the witness stand before the jurors entered the courtroom, stating pregnancy is beautiful and wonderful, but it is also a source of potential sympathy. The defense made multiple submissions to the court, reiterating this concern. And I don't remember. We'll get more into it in a little second. The defense then moved to bar Cassie's husband from the courtroom. Okay, so the man in the picture before this was Alex Fine. And defense attorneys, including Tinny Garagos, requested that Cassie's husband, Alex, be barred from the courtroom during Cassie's testimony. The defense is arguing that Alex Fine might be called as a defense witness later in the trial, specifically regarding allegations that Combs AR'd Cassie in the fall of 2018. The defense also cited a text message where Fine allegedly told Diddy he wanted to beat the F out of him, claiming that it shows his bias. However, they say they had no objection to other family members like Cassie's brother and mother remaining in the courtroom, as well as Diddy's family in the courtroom. Prosecutors counted that Fine is a critical part of Ventura's emotional support system, given her pregnancy and the nature of her testimony. All right. So the judge ultimately ruled a compromise that Alex will be allowed to sit in the courtroom for most of Ventura's testimony. However, once they get into the part of the testimony that talks about the 2018 R allegations, Fine must leave the courtroom. The judge noted that Fine was not on Combs' original witness list and that warned the defense to give more advance notice for similar applications moving forward. Prosecutors indicated that the 2018 allegations might not even come up until the following day's testimony. So let's talk about that real quick. Basically, Alex is there today for emotional support. And I do want to take a moment and say, Cassie, because I'm going to tell you guys what she said today so far, but you have to remember what she's doing is incredibly, incredibly brave. I know it's not easy to talk about this stuff. There is very personal things that she's sharing with her mother and sister in the room, things very much of a sexual nature, things that involve things that you wouldn't really want your family to hear. And she's talking about this for the greater good. So I just want to give mad props to Cassie. Just mad props. In fact, I'm going to do this. Absolutely. Big photo. All right. It's got to be scary. So now let's move on and talk about what the defense plans to do as far as Cassie's own messages to challenge her credibility. Okay. So the defense is planning to introduce messages between Combs and Ventura. These messages will include an instance of where Combs was worried Ventura was cheating on him while she was out of state. Cassie reportedly told him she hadn't responded because she had gotten into a bar fight. Defense argued that this incident demonstrated that Cassie had substance abuse issues independent of Combs, contradicting the prosecution's narrative. Basically, what they're saying is that Cassie had her own substance abuse issues that had nothing to do with Diddy, and that contradicts basically what the prosecution is trying to paint. All right. The prosecutor called the incident just a prior bad act, referring to that bar fight, and it's irrelevant to her credibility. It doesn't call it into question. The judge, again, overruled that objection, allowing the defense to bring up that incident in court. Now, legal analysts, including CNN's Jennifer Rogers, who is a very trustworthy legal analyst, has emphasized that Cassie is the narrator of the government's case. Unlike cases where an FBI agent might be present, might present the overarching narrative here, Ventura herself is going to be the one connecting the dots between Diddy's alleged coercion, the role of his inner circle, and the broader trafficking charges. That is why she's the key witness. So instead of an FBI agent coming up here, they have Cassie, who is going to connect the dots and paint the picture for the jury, putting everything together. All right. Now, according to the indictment, Combs coerced Ventura into participating in these performances, including the infamous freak-offs, which involved male prostitutes. Prosecutors need Ventura's testimony to show that these acts were not consensual, but rather a part of a coordinated plan involving multiple people and crossing state lines. All right, let me repeat that. Prosecutors need Cassie's testimony to show that these acts, these S acts, were not consensual, but rather a part of a coordinated plan involving multiple people and crossing state lines. That is a key part of prosecution's argument here. A little background. Most of y'all know this, but just a little background for those who might not. Cassie's 2023 lawsuit against Combs ignited all of this. Had he just paid her off when she approached him the first time, none of this would be happening to him right now. None of it. At the same time, had he not done these things, none of it would be happening to him also. But here we are. The lawsuit included graphic allegations of abuse and violence, resulting in a swift settlement just one day after it was filed. Again, she gave him the opportunity to settle before she ever filed that. Despite the settlement, the lawsuit opened the floodgates, and dozens of similar accusations and lawsuits began mounting against Diddy. And again, I'm going to continue to stress this. Had he settled, it would have been private. They would have never made it to the news. And none of this would have been happening. But again, he also could have not done this stuff in the first place. So again, his long-standing relationship with Cassie long-standing relationship with him is now central to the prosecution's case as they attempt to prove that he operated a trafficking enterprises. So the defense position in this is basically this: that his attorneys are going to continue to maintain that all S encounters were consensual, The defense strategy remains focused on attacking Ventura's credibility, minimizing sympathetic optics, and reframing the allegations as consensual adult relationships, which are complicated by personal grievances. Okay? So from here, Cassie takes the stand. All right? From here, Cassie takes the stand. She enters the courtroom, 8 months pregnant, wearing a form-fitting brown dress. The jury does get to see her, despite the defense's efforts to shield her pregnancy from jurors, arguing potential sympathy. The judge denied that request, so she walks in while the juror is seated instead of her being seated when the jury walks in. Alex Fine, Cassie's husband, is present in the courtroom. Again, remember, defense tried to bar him, citing that they might call him for a witness for a 2018 R allegation. Again, from Diddy R-ing Cassie in 2018. Judge ruled that he can stay for most of this testimony, but will be required to leave if and when the 2018 R topic comes up. So it starts at the beginning. This is okay. From here on, I just want to make it very crystal clear. We're going to draw a line here. From here on out, this is Cassie talking. This is Cassie on the stand. Everything she said prior to lunch. Okay? It starts with meeting Diddy. The bad boy years, if you will. Cassie met Diddy in 2005 at the age of 19, and he was 36. She described him as a larger-than-life music entrepreneur, which back then, he 100% was. She signed a 10-album contract with Bad Boy Records in 2006, but only one album was ever released. The initial relationship was strictly professional. Fast forward to Las Vegas, 2007. This was her 21st birthday. During a 21st birthday trip to Las Vegas, Diddy kissed her in a hotel bathroom. Cassie testifies that at that time, she was really confused at the time, and she was young. She cried, ran back to her hotel room, and told someone what happened. Asked in court if she wanted the kiss, she said, "No, not at my 21st birthday." Cassie admits to being insanely jealous at the start of their relationship. She said she didn't get that he was him, that Diddy was Diddy. Diddy told her, "I'm Puff Daddy. Puff Daddy has many rules, likes the company of women." Over time, she came to believe that they were monogamous. She said that he expected that of me, so I assumed it was the same. Diddy expected her to be monogamous, but didn't expect for himself to be not monogamous. Diddy told her, "I'm not dealing with anyone else, it's just us." That's what he said, but it wasn't true. Then she moved to Los Angeles to follow him. She eventually moved from New York, where she lived, to LA just to be closer to Diddy. She said she moved because she was in love and wanted to be near him. At the time, Combs paid her rent while she lived in New York. While he paid the rent, he had his own keys and used them whenever he wanted. In LA, Diddy lived right down the block from her. She said, "I could walk or drive about 3 minutes to his house." Later, Cassie bought her own house in Studio City. She said she wanted that freedom for herself. She said, quote, "I wanted that freedom for myself. I wasn't getting it in a lot of other ways, and there was no fight." Then there was the NYC hotel meetings, and that's when things took a more sexual approach. So what happened is he taught her how to perform oral relations, and made her feel crazy for not reciprocating. She emphasized her inexperience. She said she didn't even have, at the time this happened, she didn't even have the vocabulary for the things that they talked about. And she was still in a relationship at that time with someone else when this happened. The first encounter was during a Miami boat trip, first sexual encounter, where it was more than oral. Diddy gave her a Blue Dolphin X pill and wine. Cassie testified that she was out of it, laughing, didn't know what it was until later. She said that she goes, "You're just really high, sensitive to touch, all of your senses." That night, they slept together for the first time, and Combs at that point was still with Kim Porter when this happened. The relationship was kept secret for years to protect his image and his family. Then there was falling in love. Post Miami, Cassie says that she fell for him. She was his little shadow. They had fun. My first real adult relationship, or so I thought. She described his lifestyle as, quote, "assistance at his beck and call." He could get anything done quickly. He traveled quite a bit and had respect from everyone. Then came the start of the freak-offs. Within the first year, Combs proposed freak-offs. These, parties where he watched her sleep with other men. Cassie's reaction was, "My stomach fell to my butt." That's what's her exact words. Her exact words were confused, nervous, but I loved him and wanted to make him happy. So Combs arranged for them at first. Later, it became her responsibility. It became a job for her. Refusal felt impossible. She said, quote, I didn't know what no could be or what it could turn into. She feared violence, abandonment, and blackmail with videos. Then became more of a pattern of control with day-to-day surveillance. Control was everything, from the way I looked to who I was talking to. Diddy would give her busy work, projects that never released. If she didn't answer his calls, he would blow up her phone and involve staff to locate her. Security would physically check on if she didn't respond. She said, quote, control over what I was doing every minute of the day. Diddy's mood swings and physical abuse. Cassie describes Diddy as basically someone whose mood swings swung different ways quite a bit. His moods impacted her directly. Quote, making the wrong face. The next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face. He would say, watch your mouth. She emphasized that sometimes the abuse wasn't even about her. He'd be angry about something else and then lash out on her. Cassie then detailed the frequency of the violence in more graphic details of the violence. Things like, quote, he would mash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head while I was down. Some of her injuries include knots on her forehead, busted lips, swollen and bloodshot eyes, bruises all over her body. And when asked how often this happened, she said too frequently. When she didn't answer him, his staff and security would track her down. Then there's the 2016 Intercontinental Hotel assault. Court was shown stills, like photographs, photo stills from the infamous security footage of Diddy assaulting her. Cassie confirmed, that's me and Sean, Intercontinental Century City. That incident followed a freak-off. There was fear of blackmail. Cassie testified that she kept broken laptops, iPads, and iPhones. I didn't know what was on them. Sean is polarizing and charming. It's hard to know what you need when he's telling you what he wants. Feared blackmail material would be used against her. Then there's visual evidence of early relationship photos. So juries were shown pictures of the Miami boat trip where they first had relations, more intimate relations. Pictures from a Halloween 2007 at a strip club in New York City. Casual photos with Diddy's arm around her early on in the relationship. And Cassie reflected, saying, quote, I was just enamored. We were having fun. It was really fun at that point. Then came the realization of his other relationships. Despite believing that they were monogamous, Cassie eventually realized Diddy had many girlfriends. Her assumptions were based on his promises, but reality proved otherwise. Now, apparently, her emotional state on the stand, for those of y'all who want to know this, she's being described as frequently pausing, taking deep breaths. She's rested her hands on her pregnant belly during the emotional testimony. She's dabbed her eyes with tissue at several points, especially during abuse recounting. Now, here's what I want to say. Cassie's testimony builds a pattern of control, coercion, violence, manipulation, and isolation. All of these are patterns, obviously, of abuse and violence and an abuser. And this is only part of her testimony, guys. They had to take a break for lunch. So after lunch, we're expecting her to hear even more about these disturbing events, including possibly that 2018, our allegations. And I'm going to be right there every step of the way to bring you these updates and these recaps. So again, I'm going to ask you guys to follow. But here's what I want to kind of put back in mind for you guys too, listening to this. First, real quick before I say this next part, if you are watching on Instagram or TikTok, you've come in late because I see that we got a lot of people in both of those platforms. If you want to know what you missed, this is being recorded on YouTube. You can go watch it right now from start to finish to get this midday recap. I will also put out a Substack article once I'm off live. I'll work on getting that out to you guys while we then work on the additional things. Okay. The other thing I want to let you guys know is we start today the hearings for the Menendez brothers for their resentencing. That's going to be a 2-day hearing. So I'll give you guys updates on that as well. Now, here's what I want to say. Okay. And again, I want to preface and give you my stance on this. Okay. I think that Diddy is guilty. I think that Diddy is a bad person, a bad human being. Okay. That is my personal opinion. But when you're looking at the facts of this case, so far, everything that we have heard up to this point shows that he is an abuser. He is violent. He is a vile human being. Okay. Gets everything that he wants. But the challenge that they're going to have here, that prosecution is going to have, is showing what part of this makes this racketeering, what part of this makes this trafficking. And at this point, we have not heard anything that does that, at least in my opinion. So I'm hoping that we're going to start to get to this. I have a feeling we're going to have Cassie on the stand for quite some time. All right. So, anyways, this is the midday lunch recap. They should be back from lunch in probably about 15, 20 minutes. I will get a Substack out for this for anybody who wants to follow there. Make sure if you're on YouTube to have those notifications on, because this is the best way to hear it. I will always go live on TikTok. I will always go live on Instagram. But if you want to have this where you can rewind, fast forward, things like that, YouTube is going to be the best place. That being said, I will be back when we have a little bit more information. Thank you guys for joining. Have a good one. TikTok, don't go anywhere. I can figure out how to. I didn't mean to do that.